Hello and welcome to Tech Deals. Ryzen 7000 series is here, the fourth generation of Zen CPUs from AMD that brings with it not just faster performance, but many new technologies across your PC. Today we're going to review the Ryzen 5 7600X, the entry-level $300 CPU from the new Zen 4 lineup. This CPU features 6 cores and 12 threads, 5.5 GHz out-of-the-box all-core boost, and incredible performance. Gaming and productivity benchmarks are included, as well as an overview of the new AM5 platform. Please sit back and relax, grab a drink, grab a snack, and let's get into it. Today's video is brought to you by Ewin Racing, the best source for gaming chairs and desks for those long gaming sessions. We have a playlist of our Ewin chair and desk videos linked in the video description below. Save 30% off of everything using the discount code TechDeals. More details at the end of the video. The first Zen 4 video we published was the Ryzen 7 7700X. It contains more information on the platform, motherboards, and different Zen 4 CPUs. If you haven't seen it, please watch it first for more information. It is linked in the video description below. The shortest recap ever is Zen 4 is an all-new CPU design on a brand new motherboard called AM5. This is a new socket incompatible with the first 4 generations of Ryzen CPUs, and it now uses exclusively DDR5 RAM. The X670 chipset motherboards are out now. Lower-priced B650 motherboards are coming in October. For the Ryzen 5 CPU shown today, the B650 motherboards are likely to make far more sense, but we'll talk about that at the end of this video. Today, we'll be testing Intel's counterpart to the 7600X, the i5-12600K. Part of the Alder line of CPUs launched in 2021, this features 6 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores, the first hybrid desktop x86 CPU, and an interesting idea that we'll have to see if AMD counters in the future. Please note, that is in fact an i7 box you see on the table. I don't have an i5-12600K box. Every time I point to this box, I am really referring to the i5-12600K. There is no i7-12700K in the video. You work with what you've got. Essentially, both of these CPUs have 6 cores and 12 threads in the traditional sense, with the Intel CPU having 4 bonus cores that run at a lower clock speed and are not hyper-threaded. So they mostly help with background tasks and multitasking rather than giving primary programs a serious boost in performance. I'll have some platform cost numbers, a conclusion, and upgrade advice at the end of the video. We have 2 different test machines being used to benchmark each CPU, as they are on 2 different sockets. Rather than read out a ton of numbers for the next 5 minutes or more, we're just putting them all up here on screen. Feel free to pause the video to read them if you'd like. The short version is we have balanced each test machine to be as fair and reasonable to each CPU as possible. First, we'll start off with some non-gaming tests to look at the single-threaded and multi-threaded productivity performance of each CPU. CPU-Zenbench provides a simple and easy way to test your PC to make sure it's running as it should. The single-thread results here are effectively a tie. However, the multi-threaded results are not. Both CPUs have 6 real cores, as some people like to say, implying that efficiency cores aren't real cores, but they are real enough to provide a 17% higher multi-thread performance over the 7600X. Cinebench R23 is more or less a 20-minute version of CPU-Z. It's based on a real workload, however, it tends to have almost perfect core and thread scaling. The story is similar with one big difference. The Ryzen 5 7600X now scores a modest win here by a whole 6%, which is greater than the margin of error, if only just. In multi-threaded workloads, the i5-12600K naturally beats the 7600X. 10 cores are faster than 6 cores. Breaking news, film at 11. Having said that, I do think it's worth pointing out that the 12600K has 66% more cores than the 7600X, and it's only beating it by 16%. So it wins, but it's honestly not that much of a win. 7-Zip is a file compression program that has a lovely built-in benchmark. Note that if you wish to try this yourself, make sure you're on the same version we're using, 22, because the benchmark does change between versions. The 6-core 7600X beats the 10-core 12600K by 8%, probably because 7-zip is not effectively using the E-cores, and because Zen 4's new cache design is in fact that good. 7-zip is very cache and memory dependent. If you want a benchmark to test different RAM and cache latency settings, I would start here. Blender is a great tool for testing 3D rendering performance on both CPUs and GPUs. This time, the 12600K destroys the 7600X by 6%. Yes, I'm joking here. 6% is basically just outside the margin of testing error. For all of its higher core count, the i5 really doesn't do any better here than the 7600X does. Finally, we have V-Ray, a 3D rendering program used by the biggest media companies in the world. Seen Star Wars Rogue One, Captain America Civil War, V-Ray was used to render the 3D effects in those movies. Here you can once again see that the 12600K destroys the 7600X by a massive 4%. Okay, I swear, I'm trying to say this with a straight face. I would actually call this a tie. There is not enough difference here to matter outside of putting numbers on a benchmark chart. The E-cores are great for multitasking, but they're not as good at multi-threading, at least not in real workloads. Having said that, can we have an honest talk for a minute? If you're watching this and you honestly actually care about Blender and V-Ray results, please do yourself a world of favor and buy a Ryzen 9 7950X and be done with it. The difference there is stark and dramatic, and for actual 3D animation work, neither of these CPUs should be on your list. I talked about this in the 7700X video, but I think it's worth saying again. Multitasking and multi-threading are not the same thing, despite the two terms being sometimes interchanged in casual discussions of CPUs. Multi-threading is when one program will use all the cores and threads you have to run as fast as possible. Some programs like V-Ray will scale to thousands of cores across hundreds of machines in a professional environment. Multitasking is when you're running multiple completely different programs that are competing for system resources. A good example would be multiple monitors with a game running on one, a web browser open on another, watching a YouTube video or Twitch live stream, or maybe you're live streaming your own gameplay to YouTube or Twitch. The i5-12600K is a decent multitasking CPU, but its multi-threading doesn't appear to hold up outside of synthetic tests. Having said that, if you actually want decent multitasking performance, you need more than this in 2022. Either step up to the i7 or i9, or buy a Ryzen 9 and be done with it. Your sanity will thank you for it. Our first game is Assassin's Creed Valhalla, a very demanding title that is almost, but not quite completely GPU bound here. These results are effectively a tie. 134 on the 12600K versus 129 on the 7600X is within the testing margin of error, and this holds true for the 1% low and 0.1% low results as well. Battlefield 2042 is new to our benchmark suite. Several of you have requested this be added, so here it is. This is another effective tie, one that surprised me as I expected the higher thread count of the 12600K to give it an edge here. However, that turned out not to be the case. I saw 68% usage on the 7600X a few times. That is deep into the SMT, or multi-threading. So you'd think that the 12600K would step up. However, it also passed 60% usage a few times as well. My feeling after testing both of these CPUs in live gameplay is that online multiplayer games like Battlefield 2042 now really want 8 full performance cores, which is probably why both CPUs are so close. Call of Duty is perhaps the most popular online first-person shooter franchise of all time, and a terribly difficult one to test in live gameplay. We could use replay files, however that really just tests the graphics card as there is no server interaction, no player interaction, and it's effectively just watching a movie at that point. We may very well do this for the upcoming GPU comparisons, but for CPU testing, we prefer live gameplay on live servers against real people. The downside is that no two matches are ever the same and you can't directly compare the results, only draw general conclusions. Here are two of the many battles that we played on a chart. Neither are the fastest or slowest results that we tested. Rather, this represents a reasonable middle ground you can expect most of the time. This is effectively a tie in all respects. Cyberpunk 2077, the game with a troubled launch in 2020, has seen a recent resurgence with patch 1.6. That is the version all of these tests run on. The 7600X passed 80% CPU usage at times, while the 12600K passed 60% usage. Both will run the game, neither will be as nice as a true 8-core CPU. This game is a good example of 6 cores no longer being enough for modern AAA games. Having said that, these results are going to cause their fair share of comments because 183 frames per second average and a 1% low over 100 frames would lead most people to the conclusion that 6 cores is all you need. That is understandable when looking at a chart of numbers. However, these were tested on a completely clean test machine with nothing else running. Nothing in the task tray, no background services, no Chrome tabs, no Windows Update, no antivirus. Unless you run benchmarks for a living, your PC is not set up like this. How do I know? I have 2 complete playthroughs in this game, over 350 hours played. On my i9-9900K, 8-core 16-thread machine at home, I had to close all of my background tasks, most things in the task tray, close Chrome, and switch from my dual monitor setup to a single monitor to get smooth gameplay. Otherwise, it was a stuttery, choppy mess, even on 8 cores. I cannot shout from the rooftops loudly enough. If modern AAA games are your thing, Ryzen 5 and i5 CPUs should not be on your shopping list. The results don't make it look that way. However, that's the honest truth. F1 2022 is new to our benchmark suite, with the 2020 version finally being retired. Still very easy to run, a good test for high frame rates and making sure the 1% lows are solid. Naturally, this runs perfectly fine on both CPUs. It's an updated game engine to be sure, but it's still not that new. This is a game that we re-ran to double-check performance, and the numbers were spot on. 245 frames per second average on the 12600K versus 290 on the 7600X. Yes, those numbers are correct. That is an 18% performance difference, far beyond any margin of error, and worth noting if high frame rates are your thing. Far Cry 6 is also new to our benchmark suite, finally having retired Far Cry New Dawn. This is another situation where the i5 just can't keep up with the Ryzen 5. It's close, but no cigar, with the 7600X at 154 frames per second versus 138 on the 12600K. 12% difference isn't massive, however, it is not a rounding error either. What I find so interesting is that the i7-12700K and the Ryzen 7 7700X, the step up from both of these CPUs, were tied in this test at 157 frames per second each. Whatever Intel did to cut the i7 down to the i5 really hurt its performance. It's possible the reduced onboard cache is making a difference. However, it isn't that big a size difference, so it'd be surprising if that's the case. Guardians of the Galaxy is another game where the i7-12700K beat the Ryzen 7 7700X. However, here the results reverse again. The 7600X beats the 12600K, if only by a hair. Hitman 3 is another new addition to our testing suite, and this one is a whopper of a demanding game. It will use everything you've got to provide fast frame rates and smooth gameplay. In this case, both CPUs provided similar performance. This is another game where I strongly recommend a Ryzen 7 or i7 CPU over either of these if you can afford it. The game will use all of it, and it'll be a nicer overall experience.
I'm giving her all she's got, Captain. If I push it any harder, the whole thing will blow.
Spider-Man Remastered is another game new to our test suite, and this is another game that will use almost everything you can throw at it. It runs well on both of these CPUs, however it's using all the cores and then some on both of them. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, say that 3 times fast, replaces Borderlands 3 in our test suite, and we're mostly GPU bottlenecked here, even at 1080p, even on a 3090 Ti. Crazy, isn't it? So many new games will use everything you can throw at them, and that includes both your CPU and your GPU. Before we go to the 10-game average chart, I want to talk to you about real-world experience for a minute. When you use as many CPUs as I do, not just in benchmarking, but in everyday use around our office and our home, you start to gain a sense of what each one can do and what to expect. Both of these CPUs are really fast. Windows will install quickly, games will launch quickly, updates will install quickly, Chrome will be super fast. Everything about them is lovely except for one key thing. Their ability to multitask is limited. If you have a single monitor and you only do one thing at a time, this really isn't a huge problem for the most part. Keep your task tray clean, close open programs, turn off updates, make sure you have nothing but your game or primary program running, and there really isn't much these CPUs won't do. At least for now. The Core Wars began a few years ago and they are in full swing. Anyone hoping for 5 years of useful life out of these two CPUs is in for a world of surprise. Even 3 years depends very much on how many future programs and games you want to run. Now, no doubt some of you will disagree with me here, and that's okay, it makes the world an interesting place, but I think buying either of these saves you a few dollars today in return for your PC needing an upgrade that much sooner. Ultimately, you're not saving anything but short-term cash and simply spending it again sooner than would otherwise be required. My advice, if you're going Ryzen, at least step up to the Ryzen 7 7700X. It is $100 more for 33% more cores. That $100 buys you time. It buys you useful life to your PC and an overall nicer experience. If you're going Intel, don't step up to the 12700K, step forward to the 13600K. 13th generation Raptor Lake has been announced. It is available for pre-order right now from Newegg. Links in the video description below. They ship October 20th. The 13600K is interesting. It has 14 cores starting at $310. It's effectively the same price as the 6-core 7600X. Now, to be fair, 8 of those 14 cores are efficiency cores, so their value is more in multitasking today, but over time, expect more games to make better use of them. Another option is to wait for the 3D chips coming early next year from AMD. Expect those to be announced at CES. They will most likely cost more than the existing Zen 4 CPUs. However, if pure gaming performance is the goal, expect good things from them. Here is the 10-game average chart showing all 10 games tested with all of the numbers smoothed out. We effectively have a tie. The 7600X is a little bit faster in the average frame rate. The 12600K is a little faster in the 1% low. However, these are all rounding errors. You absolutely could not tell the difference between these CPUs while playing games on a clean PC with a single monitor. Unless maybe you have the frame rate counter running, but even then it would be really tough. Allow me to drive the point home what a value difference currently exists between AMD and Intel. Right now, as I'm writing this script, the 7600X is $300. A solid mid-range X670 motherboard is $290, and 32 gigabytes of DDR5 6000 Expo AMD certified RAM, so you can be sure it works the first time, is $260. The total of those three base components required to get started with Zen 4 is $850. The other option is to pre-order an i5-13600K for $310, a Z690 board for $200, and 32 gigabytes of DDR4 3600 for $90. The total for those three base components required to get started with Raptor Lake is $600. Intel is offering 14 cores for $250 less than AMD is offering 6 cores. I even included the same brand and the same model motherboard for both builds to keep this as fair as possible. I don't think you can spin this in AMD's favor. Intel has become the deal, and AMD has become, well, expensive. There is a saying, you either die the hero or you live long enough to become the villain. It might be a stretch to call AMD the bad guys here, but how else do you explain this extreme difference in value? The 7600X needs an immediate price cut to $199. The B650 boards need to come out with a decent option at $150, and Expo certified DDR5 RAM kits need to drop in price by half at which point I can find value in the 7600X as a starting point for Zen 4 and AM5. I can hear the comments already. Raptor Lake is the end of the line for LGA 1700. It will be the last generation before Intel moves to yet another all-new socket next year for 14th Gen Meteor Lake. One benefit of Zen 4 is the option to upgrade to a new CPU in 2 or 3 years without replacing your motherboard, your RAM, or reinstalling Windows. That sounds nice at first, but let's break the reality down. This idea suggests that you should pay $250 more today for a 6-core CPU versus a 14-core CPU just so you can have the privilege to pay even more money in 2 or 3 years to buy what you could have just had with Raptor Lake today. For $250 less than 7600X, you get 6 performance cores that are as fast, if not faster than Zen 4, plus you get 8 free efficiency cores, which will only help your CPU last longer. I don't know about you, but I call that a tech deal. Regardless of what you do, I want to point out that we are all winners here. AMD and Intel competing means that we get new and improved CPUs more often, so it really almost doesn't matter which one you buy, because at the end of the day, we have choices, and choices are a beautiful thing.
Ewin Racing has a wide selection of chairs to fit all shapes and sizes of gamers, ranging from petite to cuddly. They have something for every type of gamer. Not just sizes, but colors and material options as well, including red, blue, purple, pink, orange, and more, plus cloth and leather choices. We have over half a dozen chair and desk videos in a playlist down in the video description below. We also have a very special offer just for Tech Deals viewers. Save 30% off of everything using discount code TechDeals using our link in the video description. We have used Ewin gaming chairs for 3 years in our office, sitting on them for up to 8-hour marathon live streams. They are very comfortable, and we are happy to work with Ewin to bring you this special discount and recommend Ewin for all of your gaming chair and desk needs.
Thank you all so much for watching to the very end. 2 gold stars for all of you still here. Like this video if you like it, share it with your friends if you love it. You know where the subscribe button is down at the bottom of these videos by this point. Hit the bell notification icon to be notified when new videos are coming out. Check the links in the video description. For those of you who disagree with my conclusions and think Zen 4 is epic and awesome, I will absolutely have links to that down there. And for those of you who for some reason want to buy a 12th generation CPU, I'll be honest, I probably won't even bother linking it. The 13th gen is already out. Go buy a 13th gen. I would include it in this video, but unfortunately, it doesn't exist yet. But you can pre-order it today and have it shipped on October 20th. You can buy very reasonably priced Z690 boards that will work with 13th generation just fine. DDR4 is absolutely totally fine for an i5 and honestly even for an i7. The only people who should really be investing in DDR5 at this point are i9-13900K buyers. And if you've got that kind of money, well, why are you watching this video? This is about entry-level CPUs. In any case, links down in the video description below. They're affiliate links. They support us, Amazon, Newegg, and eBay. Use those when you're shopping, no matter what you buy. It supports us and is greatly appreciated. Do you want to see the filming scripts and the benchmark charts of our videos before they go up? Join Patreon. I post them in advance, sometimes a few days, sometimes a few weeks. Link in the video description below. Just $2 per month, or you could pay a flat $20 for the entire year. It's a really good deal. And you get access to the filming scripts, benchmark charts, and other insider info. And you can send me a message, ask questions, and get through the wheat and chaff that is the YouTube comment section down there, which, to be honest, sometimes I don't actually get a chance to read everything. I try, but I don't. Thank you so much for watching. I will see all of you next time.